Defense Secretary pick Pete Hegseth may be in trouble. His nomination appears a little bit shaky, with some trial balloons in the mainstream media floating another possible choice, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
So who did the former Fox News host call? None other than his mom, Penelope Hegseth, who sang his praises on Fox and Friends Wednesday morning. Let's watch.
He's got a big heart, that he's very smart.
Yeah.
He is the most faithful patriot of this country. He loves his country, He's fought and almost died for his country. He's a good dad. He's an amazing son and father. And that's the Pete I want people to know.
Yeah.
And then I want to say one more thing. I said I believe he's the man for the job, but more than that, I believe he's the man for such a time as this.
Mrs. Hegseth's appearance was starkly different than an email addressed to her son in 2018, which the New York Times leaked last week. In the correspondence she wrote, he routinely abused women for years and displayed a lack of character. She urged him to get help. Fast forward to Wednesday morning, she seemed to backtrack. Take a look.
I think what's very important is that the truth be told about that email, and that we look at Pete today, not then. Mm-hmm. And I'm here. He doesn't misuse women. No. I mean, he's been through some difficult things. I'm not going to list them by name, but I would just say that some of those attachments or descriptions are just not true, especially anymore.
It could be, however, that President-elect Trump might consider replacing Pete Hegseth with a former arch-rival of Trump's, Ron DeSantis. DeSantis is a former Navy JAG and might be a more appetizing choice among Washington power brokers. Hegseth has already spooked at least 6 Republican senators. X-users are weighing in. One posted a pic of DeSantis in his claims, writing, quote, this is from Glenn Greenwald, "Selecting DeSantis to lead the Pentagon is like selecting Rubio to lead the State Department. Everyone in D.C. who matters would be completely fine with it." So could be DeSantis instead of Hegseth. So I have to say, I think it is totally, normally I wouldn't say like bring in a family member to defend someone from these kinds of charges is like a fair thing to do. Of course, your family is going to defend you. But the New York Times opened this can of worms, started this by publishing this letter that email that she sent to Pete Hegseth years ago when he was going through divorce, when he was having some relationship problems, where she was very stern with him. I think that was a private matter, and the New York Times should not have done that, and it has no bearing on how he would act as Secretary of Defense. So given that they did that, I certainly see and am fine with another journalistic institution bringing her in to answer questions about why she sent that email. So that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, I would have said, no, we shouldn't really hear from the family on this, but New York Times started it. So I don't know. What I'm hearing from connected people in Washington is today is a pivotal day. It's going to depend on conversations he has with some lawmakers. If they are satisfied, he could still, I think, be confirmed. If not, he might be withdrawn, and then we could have Ron DeSantis.
Well, I hinted at this yesterday, and I think I realized during our show yesterday that it's very possible Hegseth will not move forward. And it's not just for all the allegations and real concerns around sexual misconduct that are out there. It was the issue I was pointing to yesterday, which is the military-industrial complex, the military contractors. If they don't want him as the Secretary of Defense, they will make sure he's not in place. A lot of the feeding of negative stories, the opposition research that's going to the media, I have no doubt it's not just opposition on the left. It's people who in the military establishment who would not respect him as a DoD secretary, would look for someone who's more of the mainstream establishment Republican vein of thinking, as Glenn Greenwald was alluding to. Someone like Ron DeSantis would be kind of in the same group as like a Marco Rubio. The concern here is that if Trump goes with too many picks in the establishment Republican direction, he has he might anger the MAGA base that's looking for real radical change. So I thought this was coming. I started to realize it yesterday, and then saw the news this morning, and I thought, wow, that the military-industrial complex is even more powerful than you'd think.
Yeah, I don't know if Ron DeSantis counts as the establishment or not. I'm a fan of Ron DeSantis's COVID governance. I think he did a really good job in Florida. I think he was an appealing successor to Donald Trump, although Donald Trump was not quite ready to be succeeded. And so they had a really bitter fight. I'm glad that his name is in contention, in that it shows that it's kind of water under the bridge, I think, between Trump and DeSantis, which is good because I do think DeSantis has a bright future in the Republican Party. I don't know that I would specifically want him in the defense role because his foreign policy is not so clear to me. I think his knee-jerk kind of inner thoughts tend toward a more Bush-era hawkishness. Obviously, he came up through Republican politics as a House member, Bush era. So I think that's where his heart is. Now, he could have had a conversion. He has said some things I like about withdrawing from being too involved in the Ukraine conflict and some other stuff, but I don't know if he's just saying that because he realizes it's popular. I think he does read the Republican base or the social media milieu of young right-wing conservative people. I think he understands what they want, and it was saying what they wanted to hear, but better to, convert and say what I want you to say than to not do that. So I don't really know, and frankly, I don't know that his attitudes are all that different from Pete Hegseth's, who has also had a variety of foreign policy stances over the years. He certainly has a lot of experience as a political leader and a government leader, and so I would think he would be very easily confirmed. We'll see if that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I agree. The policy between them in practice probably wouldn't be that much different because, again, the bureaucracy, the sheer scale of the Defense Department is a very difficult ship to change directions. However, I think the powers that be, the people who actually decide these types of nominations, would probably be more comfortable with Ron DeSantis. They will see him as more respectable. He has more management and executive experience, being the governor of Florida. I particularly wouldn't be excited probably about either of them. I think the Bush-era foreign policy was highly disastrous. But I think ultimately Ron DeSantis, one of his North Stars, is ambition. And so if tacking more towards the Trump version of foreign policy, which is very different than the Bush foreign policy, would help him get this job, I'm sure he would be happy to revise his worldview.
Well, we'll see. I wouldn't make a bet right now either way about whether Hegseth is confirmed or stays in the race for this position. Although I'm just done making political bets anyway because this was not a good year for my guesses. I will be frank with you. That does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can get your podcast fix. See you tomorrow.